I'm
Uh, mm, what? Are you laughing at me?
we are live, baby. We
Are
are
we?
live, baby.
Are we delivering the realness right now? Like people are seeing what's going on.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's happening.
Okay, people, welcome to SOUSOU. Are we actually live?
We are live. Yeah, we got that sweet, sweet lag happening. So it kind of started before we knew it, but that's live. That is show business.
Everybody, welcome to SOUSOU number 7. Thank you so much for being here, for being down for the realness, for not judging or judging, but it doesn't matter because we can't see your faces. I'm Alana Stewart. This is my co-host and my sister, Lydia Prasad, aka Lydia Perso. We're getting that. We're gonna keep that nickname going. If you don't feel too disrespected. Thank you. Thank you for spending this time with us. It's always a pleasure. It's always a surprise how this is going to roll out. So this is a moment of discovery as much for us as it is for you. So thanks for taking chances. If this is your first SUSU, well, if you've been here before, you know the deal. But if it's your first SUSU, just to let you know what you're getting into, SUSU started out as a way for us to combat COVID loneliness. We wanted to bring people together. We wanted to be one of the many reminders that music is still going, of our humanness, of our togetherness. But we wanted to do it in a way that took advantage of the opportunity to come together in a new way, in a deeper way. And so, what we do here at SUSU is we bring people together who might not otherwise link, and we see what happens. Yeah, so that's what SUSU is about. And you'll learn more about it as the day goes on. But I think Lydia has some important business to share with you.
Business, life business. The Canadian identity. You know what I'm saying? The Canadian identity. What is it? Why is it? How is it? Every day we join together in some regard with our community, and it's so important for us to recognize our history as we are, wrapping up. We're not wrapping up, we're just continuing to grow awareness towards Black History Month. We are also gaining so much awareness towards Canadian history at large, and that includes Black history, that includes Indigenous history, and the awareness that we have really disconnected from the deep core of our history as a country, and we've rewritten the history books, but we are revealing the truth as the generations progress as to what the history of our Canadian identity really is. And so we gather here today on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. And we pay great respect to the fact that we get to benefit from the existence that we have on this land and in this country. And we accept and live with the duality of the genocide of Indigenous people throughout the years, residential schools, the erasure of the Indigenous identity, and the expansion of that identity. Talking about BIPOC, Black Indigenous people of color, and how limited that identity, the limited space that identity has to breathe. Just paying a lot of attention to that right now, paying a lot of attention to the necessity of the Indigenous narrative needing to be in the midst of climate change conversation. I really urge you, if you are in tune with the way that our planet is adjusting to the way that we treat it, I urge you to put Indigenous narratives in the center of that conversation, because these are the folks who are the custodians of our land, who connect with our land in deeper ways than we've ever been able to connect with it, and who are the ones that are also at the detriment of capitalism, oil pipelines, and all of it. And so I just want to say that because these voices are waiting to be listened to, and we need them, and we hold lots of gratitude for their presence in our world. And even
Mm,
though we don't always show that through the ways that we should,
mm.
um, but yeah, I just want to start things off with that and acknowledge, our history as Canadians.
That's a strong acknowledgement. I really appreciate you um, doing that. Land acknowledgements, that's something that I've struggled with, not to center it on me, but as someone who wants to do it responsibly. And there's always this reflex, which I mentioned in our social media about wanting to get it right. There's no such thing as getting it right. But when I think about it in terms of my experience as a Black woman, as a child of immigrants here in Canada, um, much of my work or political work or identity understanding has been pretty self-centered, and thinking about, okay, so my parents came here as immigrants, but I was born here, so this should be my country too. But I, it's a short-sighted um, reflection, because it's only been recently when I've been thinking about, well, why did my parents come here and how were they able to come here and be on this land in this place called Canada. And so thinking about, um, even though I'm marginalized as a Black woman, just thinking about my own responsibility of trying to understand and doing my work to understand the history between my immigrant parents, um, and the Indigenous peoples that paved the way for them. Yeah. So thanks for stirring that up. That's work that I'm going to take away and do after the show. What's beautiful about today as well is I feel like many of the guests that we have today are an extension of parents leaving home countries, coming to Canada for new possibilities. And today's conversations, the poetry, the music, is celebrating the, you know, recognizing Canada's Black history and maybe the Black history that we take for granted, especially in popular culture, but getting like hype up about what can go on still, like there's so much more that Blackness can be and mean. Um, and today I feel like we're gonna see some hints at those possibilities. So for if I know some people are coming in late, you done know some people are just like rolling in late. So if you are just joining us, thank you for coming to Susu, the little jam that could. Today we are celebrating Black history and as well Black futures through poetry, music, and conversation. And today's guests include Miss Milano, DJ, producer, artist who's got some new music coming out on Halcyon Trance, alongside their label mates, R Flex, who just released Tulips and played Susu last time, and KCMQ. We've got Jorian Charlton, who's got an incredible, oh my gosh, it's so nice on the eyeballs to see these photographs in their online exhibit called Out of Many, the story of migration from Jamaica to New York to Toronto, and connecting Jamaica's past to Toronto's Black queer future. We're going to be hearing from Bambi, DJ, producer out of Toronto and currently out of Kingston, Jamaica. Those three will be in conversation talking about Black representation, um, letting us know what perspectives are missing. Um, and I'll introduce that conversation a little bit later, but I'm very excited for you to hear some of what we had to say to each other. And as well, we've got an artist that Lydia was really championing to the Susu crew. So I'm really, really excited to hear this person's poetry. Lydia, would you like to introduce Nasra, who's coming up?
Yes, absolutely. I'd be honored to. Um, when I first saw Nusra, I was at Folk Alliance, which is a kind of an artists conference that connects musicians and artists alike with festival directors and curators to hopefully kind of team people up accordingly to where the artist's art can be facilitated properly. And Folk Alliance is it covers festivals across the country and also across, I think, the world. Like there are festivals in Ireland, there are festivals in all over the states, and it's Folk Alliance. But we know that folk is kind of extending, and there's folk music from all over the world that has an opportunity to have a moment and showcase, what they do. And so, Folk Alliance is also a slightly controversial space for a lot of artists, especially BIPOC artists, because as folk is evolving, it's still predominantly white, and it's a very complicated space. There's a very poignant Indigenous summit that happens every year at Folk Alliance that is like the realness of the realness. Like I got to be there for that, and I experienced Folk Alliance this in 2019. Oh, sorry, in 2020 I went to Folk Alliance in New Orleans, and that was one of the last big trips I did before COVID hit. And Nusra was there with the Groundings Collective, and they were hosting a small hotel room performance space, and they had me come through,
Did you perform
and
together?
pardon me.
Did you perform together?
We didn't perform together, but the Groundings Collective was hosting, and so they would perform intermittently throughout the evening, and then have guests like me come through. But the performance from the Groundings Collective, and Nusra and Dija and so many other amazing poets, musicians, the energy was amazing. It was I can't really describe. It was a collaboration of spirituality and you know I'm not sure if people out there experience this often, but when you're able to listen to music in real time and respond in real time with yelling and cheering and just responding because you're so moved, like this was a space where I really felt myself genuinely responding. And so Nesra was a really big part of that, and they brought sensitivity and sensuality and beauty to the space in a way that I had never experienced. And so I'm so honored to have Nasra here today with us and to introduce them to the community. They're streaming in live from Edmonton. And so I don't know if we're all ready to kick it off. We're going to have a live performance from them. And then we're going to stick around for a chat afterwards.
Here they
Hello,
are,
hello.
former youth poet laureate. Is that true? That's fact? That's fact, right?
I was 2016, 17.
Yeah, yeah. We're honored to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so honored. So honored. Thank you, Lydia.
Take it away.
Am I cool to just get it going?
Yep.
Sure. So I'm calling in from Amiskwachuwaskahigan, which is Beaver Hills House in Nehiyaw and Cree, on the traditional gathering lands of the Nehiyaw, of the Blackfoot, of the Dene, of the Soto, of the Papa's Chase, who else? The Blackfoot, Amiskwachi, or colonially known as Edmonton, has been a place of gathering for artists since time immemorial. Everybody used to gather by in the river valley, trade their wares and what have you. And so I'm calling in with that spirit underneath my feet. Very, very happy to be here, and also to be connecting to Takaramso and so many other indigenous lands. Wherever you're coming from, welcome. I want to thank you, Lydia, as well for that acknowledgement. Thank you, Alana, and the both of you for creating some real rap raw space online where we can still gather and be ourselves and be Black and be queer and be brown and be celebrated. So with that spirit, I'm gonna just go in. This piece is called Shay. I'm gonna talk a little bit about it in a second. Shay, fruitful tree, purpose, bright body, ringed and rooted for you. For your babies dipped in river water, I grow under, overground, serpent a moat. Lay the children. Fear. They may flick a match or thousands, I will be here. The flame and I have made agreements. We will recognize your water walk when it come, the soft thunder in your wrists and knees when you bend. I hear your grandmother echo. She was my first but a baby. We bloomed similar. She carried my fragrance, medicine across diaspora, bodies of her water, with the help of a persevering wind, a heat. So slather my resilience, coat your crackling spirit, receive me, a steady nourishment that does not need the myth of time to act. Shay. That piece for all my diaspora babies, all my babies who've been brought across oceans, like you were talking about, Alana, who are carrying the medicines of their lands across oceans, who are relying on the resilience of their medicines and of their teachings to keep them grounded wherever they are. My people are the Oromo people. My people are the Somali people. And we come from East Africa. We are indigenous to East Africa. And it is actually a very important piece of my heart and my work and my art to uplift Black indigenous people, to uplift indigenous people no matter what continent they're on, and particularly dark-skinned indigenous people. No matter where you go, honey, no matter what continent you hop onto, you ask, where are your natives? And I promise you one of them will look like me, God. I promise. I promise one of them, or a tribe of them, or all of them will be Black, will be brown, will be dark-skinned. And I think it is very important as we talk about intersections, as we talk about nuance, you feel me, in the Black experience especially, I think it's crucial that we investigate and interrogate anti-Blackness and how it shows up in anti-indigeneity. My family had to come here because of anti-indigeneity. My family fled my ancestral lands because the government, much like this one, the government of Ethiopia, was targeting and has been targeting indigenous tribes for a very, very, very long time, for centuries. So a lot of the same instability, the cultural theft that and the genocide that is happening to indigenous people of this land, and my heart is with them, also happened on my ancestral lands, and it's the reason that I'm here. And I think when we talk about settling and we talk about, again, our responsibilities, I think it is crucial that we look at and empathize with all the nuances that have brought us to the places that we are. And that poem, Shea, is about shea butter and how the shea tree has been a resilient staple in African, people of the African diaspora, as something that ain't going nowhere, and something that immediately connects us to our home. It's off my new EP called Salve. And Salve is literally based on my relationship to healing, but particularly through herbal medicine and through plant medicine and land medicine. So each track is named after a different herb that a lot of the introductory herbs that I started to work with, lavender, rose, lemongrass, um, all of these plant medicines have just like grounded me, and learning about them has grounded me in my own relationship to my ancestral knowledge. And I just really want, can I cuss? Can I swear? I could do that, right? I mean, I won't, but but I will. Okay. No, it's just the fact that so much of my healing has been based on like tangible things that I can just, smelling something nice, listening to something beautiful, feeling something soft. And I think it's very important that I also share that knowledge, but in a way that makes sense to me. So each song is the healing properties of that herb is what motivates the content of each song. So you get a little understanding about the herb and also how it has showed up in my creative life. So that's salve. And the next piece I'm gonna do is also on this indigenous kind of inner workings of like, what is it for me, as all the things that I said I am. What is it for me, like you were saying, Alana, to just show up, to wake up in the morning and to embody what that is. It's cute and whatever to talk about it, but what does it look like morning by morning, day to day? Because every day is different. Every day is different. And so this poem is called Morning, Mourning. And it was commissioned, I was commissioned to write it for Canada 150. And I had asked them, can I talk shit? And they said, go ahead. And so thus, the poem was born. This is also my first chapbook that I ever did with my poems in it. It's called A God Dance in Human Cloth. And if you follow my Instagram, my website about to be out, and you can get your own copy. Bury it down. All right. Everyone, no matter where you are, take a breath with me. 1, 2, 3. Some mornings I do not check Instagram. Do not frequent the hollow skulls of tiny men, or almost fall into some pool of red gone stale. Do not entertain the hungering opinions on some ancient lie that doesn't need me to survive anymore anyways. Some mornings I think about the land and her people instead. Quiet the colonial hum around me and give thanks she kept the doors open. Give thanks for her whispering comforts in my Hoya's language, soft enough to lull her into a new, more comfortable amnesia. Some mornings I agree to practice the anthem with my new family, mold their mouths Canadian like wet clay, my cold, graying hands sigh under their fresh black. We repeat and repeat, and I have almost carved all the immigrant away when Hubble makes a joke about men. Something about how loud they are with their fear. And she laughs her body laugh and shatters the mold of her new mouth into a milky way, and she sings the anthem the way a Yemeni woman ought, in a dancing lilt, in an accent Trudeau would break fast with. Some mornings, this country is a hospitable cot of bones, a stiff frame of dead things suffocated by fluff and smoke and a blanket of ghosts. Some mornings, I write a poem and the smoke clears. Some mornings, I speak a poem and watch the blanket of ghosts lift from my students' shoulders. Some mornings, I remember hip hop and jazz were born out of this dirt too. Turtle Island, where I'm a humble guest of infinite shades of survival. Some mornings, I remember a border is a line. Some mornings, I remember gender is a border. Some mornings, I taste the sweat of sun and dance, and there is no thirsting man or sacrifice or gun, although I've known it all. Some mornings, I say truth and reconciliation. And I look up the history of whose spine I have crushed under my boot. And I take a step off and I ask for forgiveness. And I do not celebrate the day my boot made contact at the very least. I learn my demon's language, investigate its path into my body, and I fill the holes with the yellow laugh of truth. Some mornings I'm so at home in my own body, I do not need a nation. Some mornings my body is a nation. Some mornings I do not have an opinion on race or war or power because I've seen my people jump off cliffs and land feet first. Some morning Canada is my people. Some mornings Canada demands I prove it. Some mornings I meditate, some mornings, and breathe and honor the complexities of it all. I flow back to center. My alhamdulillah, a kiss to the sky with open palms. Some mornings this country is my open palms. A black and brown and queer offering of love to a new day, always to a new day. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I hear you. Wow, wow, I hear you. Wow. I appreciate this so much. I appreciate this space to talk my shit for real. I'm gonna keep it moving, you know, I'm gonna keep it moving. So this song, this a little vibe. We're gonna groove it out. I give myself some medicine after I do a poem that, you know, makes me angry. So we're gonna get into it. This is Higher Place. It's not off the album, but you know, I might drop it on a little Bandcamp or something. Okay. I just wanna fly away, take me to a higher place where mortals fear to go. We'll watch the sky unfold, cruising through the stratosphere. Ancestors are floating near, this universe of thrones, our first and only home. Take me back, take me back, take me back home to the first womb opening, dark and magical. The sky glitter black for the babies were attacked. The only names spoken were the ones that spit back. Take me back, take me to the wonder of the flow. Herbs dance together, medicine and ancient flows. Death, new rebirth like twins out of earth. Elders fun lessons, it's a solid code. I just wanna ride my intuition, my inner vision. Oh, I design this purpose, co-wrote these verses, sitting side by side with spirit, ride or die. I just wanna fly away, watch the sky unfold. Cruising through the stratosphere, ancestors are floating near. This universe of thrones, our first and only home. And DC, the fish-shaped cloud in the throat right beneath it. Signs all around it, synchronicities and numbers. Astrology, the map that we use to climb these mountains. Popping up, relentless and stopping us. Each time body the climb, we gon' rest without us. We gon' flex without us. We gon' free the eyes. We gon' keep they promise for once. I just wanna ride my intuition, my inner vision. I'm just on this purpose, co-wrote these verses, sitting side by side with spirit ride boys high. I just wanna fly away, take me to a higher place, mortal spin to go. We'll watch the sky unfold, cruising through the stratosphere. Ancestors are floating there. This universe of wrongs, our first and only. Was you vibing? You was grooving, Lydia. I see you was vibing. So that's for the vibes. And I'm gonna keep it. This is my last one, and then we're gonna chit-chat. I can't wait to hear everybody else. All this black magic. This piece is called All I Ever Wanted. It was me processing like the asks of this pandemic on your emotional and like mental sphere. Like being with yourself. Like, what does that really mean? All I ever wanted was true. All I ever got was excuse after excuse. Body like a valley they run through. Who am I without a cause? Who am I to you? I am a reverse engineer, unraveling the mound of matter I am, the geometry of martyrs, repetition and mangoes overripe. You can smell me through my skin, I'm ready to peel away bare orange flesh, press thumb into fruit body, leave a crescent indent as flag. I was here before anyone else, except the heat. I watched sweet flies birth a colony from my death of deaths. I am reborn, 100 wings in the unmaking. Carry me to my next home, but not before I name this one. All I ever wanted was true. forgot excuse after excuse. Black body like a valley they run through. Who am I without a cause? Who am I to? I want to name every shape I've taken. Seed, sprout, rotting core. I want to be angry and loved. I want to be learning and left alone. I want to be black and human. All my parts are alive. Horizoning my bedroom floor. I kiss the fears greening with mold, with new life. Caress the unrequited love letters, press them like flowers into my skin before I began, and dance naked and holy in the smoke.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Woo. I am just fully weeping over here. Pisces season coming through every orifice of my body. Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Nusra.
Oh, sending so much gratitude for that and just
Lydia. Oh, I appreciate you.
I feel like I get to relive the moment that I first saw you perform too, which brings back so much, like it's just it's could you imagine everyone watching here in Atlanta, can you imagine watching Nasra and Dija, who is like these two folks, like Dija's also a spoken word artist and a vocalist and musician, and the energy with these two was just I was weeping in time. Like I'm in a small hotel room, it's 3 a.m. and there's drumming and there's singing and there's beauty and there's just like it's just free expression and it's just like it's taking me back there and I'm just so incredibly moved by you and thank you. Thank you so much. Ah, and for you to for you to insert your narrative towards going through COVID and going deep inside of ourselves and just really meeting ourselves,
Right.
Where we're at. We wanted to bring artists into this space where they were at and just really meet them there and make them feel safe and supported because we've all had to adjust so deeply with COVID and I just think that it's really beautiful for you to bring that into this space in a very honest and beautiful way and I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you for acknowledging that it was a reality, like that's the making of SOUSOU, right? Was that there's a need for each other, and so thank you for creating it so that I could be here.
You saying that right now really makes me think, beyond the SOUSOU pot, the money we want to raise to support our artist family, to support our greater community and all the social initiatives that are happening right now. Your energy musically and artfully, it goes into that pot to then give to all of us and just breathe life into us when we are I think we're running on fumes, y'all. Like I think we really are running on fumes and I think that we can get a little bit of gas here and there from you say meditating and looking inside and connecting with the self, but I just feel like moments like this really take my tank up, like big time. So I had to acknowledge that. How are you feeling and how is art for you? How has it shifted in COVID? Where are you finding inspiration? Are you taking a break to just adjust? Like how are you?
Thank you for asking. that sometimes triggering question.
I know I don't want to go too deep, but I
No,
just
no,
want to
no.
leave space. Yeah.
It's great. I was ready to talk about it. So,
I feel like I just want to step out of the room and witness because I don't have anything to contribute and I'm selfishly just absorbing this energy exchange right now. I'm going to mute my video. I'm going to mute my sound and I'll be back in a minute, okay?
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you-
oh, um, great questions. So the beginning of the pandemic, so it was my birthday gift. Because my birthday's on March 16th. So it was like literally that day. And I knew that I think the majority of the beginning of the season, I just like tapped out. Like I was like, oh, my prayers have been answered. Oh, you turned the world off? Say less. Like, say less.
Yeah.
And so I just stopped. I didn't answer no email. I was just like, wow. And just reminding myself every day that I could do whatever the fuck I wanted was literally like my saving grace. And the pressure of like feeling like, no, like the rest of the world is also experiencing. And I think it was that. I think I was already moving into the I had already moved into the artist kind of, weekends are whenever the hell I want and just like my own schedule. But I think having the pressure lift across the board was, and by lift, I mean, it also was put on. But just in those expectations, I think it was really dope. I took a break. I spent a the last few years curating my baby Black Arts Matter, a festival that was popping off every Black History Month, aka Black Labor Month. And and it had got to the point where 2020, the fact that you said 2019, I was like, that's what it felt like, because we saw each other at the beginning of the year.
I know.
But 2020 I had already been preparing that BAM was going to be Black folk only. We were only doing our workshops. The whole point was to congregate. So I already could smell it in the air that something needed to change. But I think my main thing has been moving from curating and directing and producing into like putting that energy into the art that I make as Nasra the artist.
Yeah.
Because I spent a long time supporting a lot of brilliant artists and just making space to be Black in Alberta and to be an artist. Like it was not, and I'm not going to toot my own horn, but toot, bitch, because there's so much growth in Alberta in the BIPOC artist community. And I know Black Arts Matter had a huge piece of it, because when I was scouting for showcases and things for me to perform on and still be myself and not have to sacrifice my story or explain things, it just wasn't happening. So I've spent a lot of the year just like really asking myself, like, Nasra, like, how do you prioritize yourself in every single way? Like moment to moment, how do you release expectations? How do you create boundaries? How do you communicate what your needs? What pisses you off? Like looking at inner child healing, looking at going to therapy. I started going to therapy.
Yeah.
Okay, this year. And it's just like, well, damn, now that I got the time, might fuck around and get healthy, And so, I might. And so that I feel like has been the main thing, was like, how does Nasra as a human person living? And like, it put a lot of things in perspective. I moved and my partner moved in with me, and there's just been a lot of changes. And I feel like being able to connect just straight up as myself, as Nasra the artist, and what I need has actually been harder than I expected. I'd be sitting around like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to apply for that grant. I don't want to, and that's fair. I don't want to do anything. I'm Black. It's tiring. But like rekindling the passion to do things for you. Like not because someone else is hiring me or booking me,
Yes.
not because, I want to whatever reach this level of fame or whatever. Like, what are your internal motivations, Nasra? What connects you to your dreams every single day, even if that dream is coloring? I started coloring. I be coloring. What? Just other creative ways to like be with myself that don't need to give me a paycheck.
Yes.
And like start to heal that capitalist inside me that says I'm an individual, I'm here, hustle all day every day. That's a very anti-indigenous way of being. and it fucks with my body, like it makes me sick. So what does it look like to authentically and genuinely move at my own artistic pace has been 2020 into 2021. And getting my finances together, bro, because they're a mess. Things like that, like literally reparenting myself has been a huge, huge thing. And I know that's what a lot of people have been forced to do, to sit down and think about like what motivates you to live your life, bro. Like every day.
Every day, getting up every day for yourself, and everything you're saying is hitting me so hard. And there's so much in the show to come that talks about the fact that I feel like a lot of BIPOC artists, they escaped the white gaze.
Right.
They escaped the gaze
Mm-hmm.
of just being in themselves, in their bodies, in their lives, living for themselves. And it's so crazy to think that as a BIPOC artist, it takes a minute to get there, because a lot of that capitalistic game you just said, it has to do with playing that game in the
Right.
gaze.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I've lost a lot of sight of who I am. And to be honest with you, there are parts of myself I only realized with escaping the gaze in COVID in the last year that I'd never been able to give myself the space to find.
Right.
So totally hearing you.
So real. And we need that space. Everybody follow the NAP ministry. If you don't follow the NAP ministry, follow God's work by Tricia Hersey. She's a Black woman who has been doing rest liberation work her whole career. She does performance art and creates literal napping heavens for participants to involve themselves in and just like take a nap. And like actually thinking about how much attention you need to give yourself to adequately rest. Like that doesn't just mean like sleeping. It like goes into a whole lifestyle change of being like, I am not a commodity. BIPOC human beings, especially, we are not commodities. I'm not a product. I'm not a machine. God, I'm not a machine. And a lot of our work, I feel like as artists, is taking a nap and divesting from the rat race that says like art is to be commodified. My main thing has been like, yo, if I'm gonna live in my body as a land-based person, it means that I have to go with the rhythms of the land. And it means that I must treat art as a way of being, not a thing I do, not my job, that it is who I am. Like, it's who I am. Like, I don't know how to process the world and my day to day other than singing about it, rapping about it, writing about it, putting on looks about it. I don't know how to do that. And so I really hope for BIPOC, especially artists, to connect to that sense of self that says, yo, I am my art and it is my language. So the same way you're not coming for somebody for speaking their language, you can't come for artists for making art to live. And that means you need to pay people's rent. Cancel rent. Hashtag cancel rent.
I mean, it's so wild to see money and how it's working, and what you're saying. Artists need rest. Their process needs to be nurtured. Getting off the album cycle
Right.
releasing an album, spending your life's work releasing an album, then you got to release another album in a year, or you're going to fall off the cycle. Like, I just see that as capitalism injecting itself into artistry, and everything that you're saying about rest and just self, like, you just knowing the self. And it takes a lot of time. Like, I'm learning so much about familiarity, and how unfamiliarity is the demise of our humanity, because we live in unfamiliarity, and we're just trying to survive. We're not thriving. And thriving in unfamiliar spaces, it only takes time, and we need patience
Yeah.
and rest, like you're saying, and meditation on all these changes, and canceling rent, as we can see, is happening.
You need systemic structures to allow for artists to. I'm not gonna come in between you and your bag telling you to take a nap. Like it, like a lot of us, like this is the only way we can afford to make money. So I get that. But it's like also me putting a bullhorn to all the systems that make it so hard to have your basic needs met, that then make it a luxury to be an artist. Luxury. Can you imagine? They say you're so lucky to do what you love.
Yeah. It's such a gaslight. It's such a gaslight.
I said, all y'all want to watch Netflix, all y'all want to listen to these albums, Spotify, all y'all want to wear clothes, okay?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
ain't nobody like prioritizing artists in the way that we, in a way that actually aligns with the value that we produce for society.
100%, 100%. And that's where we want to support you, and we want to give energy back to you, as COVID continues and all the restrictions are still around us, but also as we continue to have that time. Like, we're reaching a 1 year anniversary of the beginning of the lockdown. You know what I mean? And I think your words about rest, patience, self-knowing, inner child work, deep, deep nurturing of the self, that is the reset that we need to get us through whatever is to come, and how much longer COVID is going to keep us inside, keep us away from, performing live in the way that we used to. So I just want to thank you so much. I feel like, we only reconnected here. We haven't reconnected since January, but I want to reconnect with you. And you're so inspiring. Your energy is just, I feel so seen by you, and I also just feel like you're just so open to receiving. And I feel, the palms up, just that energy is just, we just need that. And I wish you the best in Pisces season, my sweetheart.
Girl, thank you.
I hope you cry and laugh and feel joy and sensuality and all the things to come in this season.
Oh, I will. And I'm gonna call you. We're gonna talk.
I love you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasra. Wow, so beautiful to see you two together.
That was so unexpected. I was not prepared for that. But
I think it happened exactly the way it needed to see someone be so open, but then also for you to be in a position to receive is also its own work and its own beauty. I can say that I felt in my body, something that I've been noticing in recent times is like this fear of coming into contact with the power that Nasra has, and the vulnerability that you two put on display, and the power, and the openness that we're about to witness in another conversation that we're gonna see. There's something about it that stirs up a feeling in me that has been dormant for quite some time, and is actually scary to encounter, because to be upfront is to be seen. And if we're thinking about a conversation like this in the context of Black History Month, it isn't safe to be in a Black, but it isn't entirely safe to be in a Black body, and it's not just the George Floyds of the world and the ending of their lives. It's also the subtle ways of when you're seen and you're different, especially when I think about the context of the indie scene that SOUSOU primarily runs with. To be seen is to have someone identify your difference, is to potentially be othered, is depend, you know what I mean? Like it's a risk. And so I feel grateful for Nasra's voice and work, um, and courage and willingness to be seen, you know, because that art and that music and that expression is a stand-in for some of the sentiments that lay dormant in certain bodies. So I felt I felt scared in a good way, in a necessary way, and took away a lot from that. You know, I want to be Black. I want to be human. They said in their work. That's a powerful reminder. That's a very powerful reminder. Um, and talking about precarity, I think that that's a nice precarity. That's a nice segue into talking about we got this thing going on at SOUSOU. That shit ain't nice. It's not nice at all, you know, precarity. And we recognize that, and in our own small way, we try to help our community with little boosts, as I insist on calling them. So let's ground this. You just heard from Nasra, a lovely poet, artist, um, someone who offers us a tremendous amount of energy, Edmonton's former youth poet laureate, reciting some passages from their work Self and their new book. I believe that's coming out. If you check the comment section, Luca, what up, Luca, Susu fam in there, will lead you to Nasra's Bandcamp page and IG if you want to follow their words and follow their journey. Um, and if you are just hopping in, Susu is the little jam that could, just bringing different sounds and perspectives together and seeing what can happen, seeing what kind of energy exchanges can happen, um, for better or for worse. But, you know, we're about trying, you know? Um, and a Susu, you probably heard this before because there's some regulars in the crowd, but a Susu came from the West Indies, the Caribbean, where my mom is from. And when she came to Canada, her and her gazillion sisters were like, yo, we don't really have that much money. We don't have a bank account. We don't have a credit card, but we want to do all this shit. How are we going to do that? And then they're like, you know what? I got a little bit. You got a little bit. You got a little bit. Let's put it together. And let's put together our own savings, our own little pot. And they'd rotate that pot around until everybody got their fair share.
Yeah.
Somebody also highlighted that it's also kind of a pyramid scheme if someone wants to put it. So like, let's keep that real. But here at SOUSOU, we keep it honest and we share where the money goes. So if you have it to give, if you have your little tiny bit to give, click the donate link via PayPal. You can send by e-transfer. And what we do is we have micro grants that we give out to the community. Here's another thing that we want to stress. If you are someone that needs a boost, we got you. Just send us a note, send us a little request. There's no shame in needing anything. We're here for you. We're here for each other, just like you're here for us. So send us a note if you want to share or give, and send us a note if you need something. Yeah? So that's what SOUS is about, coming together, taking risks, and being there for each other. It's simple as that. So thank you for being here.
You are a radio DJ. Like you fully are a radio DJ. Your flow is just.
Yo,
Anyways,
just type that shit in the comments. Let me just stay in character.
Somebody get this person a radio station. The host.
If you would like to donate to SOUSOU, please do. If you have a radio station to donate, because that's what we're about today. No, but I think a couple of things came up. If you're just joining us, Lydia was in conversation with an incredible poet and artist, Nasra, based in Edmonton, Alberta. And I stepped out of the conversation because it really seemed like you two were connecting on a deep level. But also I felt charged, like I felt like an electric current was running through my veins, and I could feel the sensitivity. I could feel the potential, I guess, consequences of what was coming up, you know. And it's hard to sit with that stuff. It's part of the reason why I was hesitant even to call this SOUSOU edition a Black History Month edition, because the conversations that tend to come up The imagery, the stories that come up tend to be redundant to the point where sometimes they feel like tropes. And it actually, in my mind, can take away from the impact or the necessity of recalling Black history, which has essentially led to popular culture that we all participate in, you know?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so I'm kind of in the middle of the two sides of the Black history, of perspectives on Black History Month. On one side, people will say, well, why is it the shortest month? They're shortchanging us. They're not really giving us our due. On the other side, there are people who are like, well, actually, it was a Black historian, Carter G. Woodson, who started Black History Week, and started in February because it was during the same week as Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass's birthdays. So we're not being shortchanged. And, you know, so there are different ends of the spectrum on the perspective of Black History Month. So why is SOUSOU? How did we land on the decision to actively book an all Black lineup and actually articulate and talk about this as a celebration, as a reminder, as an interrogation of Blackness? For me, why I think it's important is um, it's the it's the right thing to do. One, everybody deserves to have a voice, be heard, and I feel like this is an opportunity for me as a Black woman to help lead the conversation when so much of Black culture is out of the hands of Black people.
Mhm.
Another thing, another reason why we're having this celebration is there's this beautiful exhibit that is on right now by a Toronto-based artist named Jorian Charlton, and it's called Out of Many. Out of Many is part of the slogan uh, for Jamaica. Jamaica's official slogan is Out of Many, One People. It's a very culturally diverse country that is predominantly Black, so it's identified as a Black country. But there's one very strong culture that comes out of a multifaceted or multi-ethnic diversity. And so Jorian started this exhibit that is rooted in a Jamaican experience, her father's. This photo exhibit features 35 millimeter film photography that her father took migrating from Jamaica to New York to Toronto. Keep in mind, he's not a professional photographer. He's just taking family photos the same way that we always take out our phones and take selfies and capture the moment. He put it in a box, gave it to Jorian for safekeeping, and didn't really think anything of it. Jorian looked at these photos, and there was something about it that spoke to her. She realized the importance of making sure that these stories, these visual stories, didn't stay locked up in a box in a storage unit, but she decided to open up her family's archives to share a story of leaving your home, going to a new place, and starting a new one. That spoke to me because my father's Jamaican, my mother's Grenadian. They emigrated to this country, and actually don't have that many photos of their of their youth or their history.
Mm.
Jorian took it one step further. Jorian herself is a professional photographer, and she photographs many people in the Black community out of her own experience of not seeing Black representation when she went to photography school. So there was this imperative for her to capture her own community. But even that wasn't what inspired this dialogue. It was putting those two perspectives together. There was the history, and then there was the future possibility. And those two together created a more holistic story of Blackness in Canada. It wasn't just the nostalgic view of, oh, you know, going back to your roots and connecting to your roots. But it was like, well, how does Toronto's queer Black rave scene connect to her father's experience in Jamaica? You know, how do we extend that story? Are we so separate, or is it a continuation? And it was seeing Black elders that looked like my dad. It was seeing Jorian's photos of Lloyd's barbershop in the annex, which was former Little Jamaica. where I also get my hair cut and shaved by Barry, who insists on calling me Yolanda after like 10 years. It's still Yolanda, how you doing, darling? Yolanda.
Maybe you look like a Yolanda to him that he knew. You know what I mean?
I finally corrected him. He started calling me Yolanda. I was like, nah, just call me Yolanda. So now everybody calls me Yolanda. But what I'm getting at, what I'm getting at was, I didn't know it at the time how important it was for me to see people that looked like me, but from a perspective where I didn't have to choose. I didn't have to choose. You know, I could still sit in the feelings and the understanding and the embodiment of old Jamaica, but also be fully myself and not have to hide my queer affiliations or anything like that, you know? And Jordan created this space where, I don't know, I guess this space of freedom that really resonated with me. And so I wanted to talk to her about it. But Jorian is so shy. Yo, I'm like, Jorian, are you whispering? And she's like, no, I'm just talking at my regular voice, but she's so shy, you know? And so I decided to turn it into a conversation. What if we got Jorian to talk to some of the artists who are her friends, who are our community, and hear from them? What does seeing these photographs of Black elders, of your Black friends, what does that do? Do we actually need to mention Black, 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 Black? Like, does that, you know, when Nasser is talking about, can I, you know, I am Black, I am human, can we just be human and you can see that I'm Black? Do we have to articulate it? When we're talking about Blackness, especially in Canada, that is still such a young country and still forming, trying to form an identity out of a complex history, what perspectives are we missing? There's so much to the conversation that I couldn't find the answers to. And even after years and years and years of Black History Month conversations, I felt like it wasn't necessarily keeping pace with changes that was happening in Black culture. And so what you're about to hear is a conversation between Jorian Charlton, who's the photographer of Out of Many. She'll be speaking with Mist Milano, who's a DJ, producer, and artist, who will have a mini set at the end of today's SOUSOU. You'll be hearing from Bambi, who's a DJ, producer based in Toronto and Kingston, Jamaica, who I call my husband daughter, who I call Joe Pesci. Like, I love, I love her personality. Just, I love it. And
I'm in love with Bambi. I'm in love with like I hadn't met Bambi, but I watched the interview and I'm just like
but it was, you know, I don't know. This is something that you brought up, Lydia. I don't know if we would have been privy to this conversation had we been in front of a SUSU live audience, which is, I
yeah,
have to say, still predominantly white.
totally. I felt that like to everybody watching right now, as somebody who watched the interview for the first time last night, I felt so honored to be a fly on the wall in this conversation because it's so candid, it's so vulnerable, it's so real. And just what you're saying, Alana, I think you're absolutely right because I feel like it's not always safe to go in on how you feel about the world and the experience that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially when you're a sensitive person and you're worrying about offending people, you're
I'm so
worrying
sensitive, but I'm a Pisces. I'm sensitive. I
you are. You are. You really are.
no, but I think it's worth highlighting. Today's Susu, there's a lot of conversation. And I think that the conversation still needs to be had. And in this convo that you're about to hear, it's some real chat. And I just think that I think that what you're going to see is me following my own curiosity, being open about my own insecurities in terms of my expression of Blackness and my proximity to whiteness. You know what? Let's not say it in these kind of academic ways. I have a lot of white friends. I have well intentioned white friends. the community that I run through is pretty white, but I am a Black person and proud to be. I do have Black community. And as we're learning how to have these conversations in honest ways, but ways that are also very public, that leaves us more susceptible to criticism, how do we do that? You know, how do we do that? And how willing are we to make mistakes? So in this conversation, I'm a stand-in for certain curiosities that maybe um, we'll have at like a kitchen table party, but not necessarily out in the open. So inspired by the beautiful um, and still necessary photo exhibit of Toronto-based photographer Jorian Charlton, here's a conversation between Jorian, myself, Miss Milano, and Bambi. Do we all know why we're here? Why are we here? What do we, does everybody know? Everybody's aware?
I don't know why. No, I'm kidding.
I wanted to talk to you all about visualizing Black culture. And it came up, as you know, Jorian has her exhibit up, Out of Many, which is a collection of family images from Jamaica to New York to Toronto. Okay, so Bambi, you're in Jamaica, Jamaican background. Jorian, Jamaican background. I'm half Jamaican, half Grenadian. Spend part of my time in Jamaica. Miss, do you have Caribbean roots?
Yeah, I'm Guyanese.
Oh, you're Guyanese. Okay.
Yeah. You know, I know there's debate because it's not island. But you
I
know,
was like,
but you know, if Haiti could be in the Caribbean, then Guyana can be
Let's
in the
look at this map, Bambi.
Why I wanted to have this conversation is because we're inundated with so much Black imagery, but there's like a hyper concentration of Black visualization and sonic representation during Black History Month. And I'm curious to know, why is it still so important to highlight it when popular culture is full of Black culture? Why is it so important to highlight it in this way? Or what does this exhibit mean to you?
yeah, that's addressed to all of us.
Yeah, anybody who wants to jump in.
I mean, I feel like Dorian's work is important because I feel like even though like, you know, there's no question about like Black culture being a part of pop culture, but we obviously see that within it, there's like a hierarchy of the types of images and narratives that are pushed to the forefront. And I feel like Caribbean culture presented in the way that she's presenting it, which is like really personal and real. And from her like specific experience of being like second generation in Canada is like not one that we really ever see. Like I think that obviously we know that like, I don't know, there's just certain aspects of black culture that will like dominate the narrative. And I've always felt like this. I just feel like Caribbean culture in general is like, you know, really like simplified, and the narrative is simplified. And it's a very, like, I've been here now for like 6 months, and it's like, even for me being Caribbean, I feel like I'm like learning things every day about just like history here, like social dynamics. It's a very complex place, you know what I mean? And the narratives are complex, the people are complex, the way people think and feel and what they're doing. And like, I just think, I think the Black experience is vast, period. So, yeah, I don't think there's ever going to be enough. You know what I mean? You can add to it, like, but yeah.
Which feels like we're stating the obvious, like what we're seeing in popular culture is one dimensional. And
what they want to see from black people. Yeah.
Say it again. That's what?
It's one dimensional, but it's like, you know, there's certain narratives that are obviously going to be prioritized over others. There's certain bodies, there's certain images, certain aesthetics. And I think that specifically the Caribbean, which is like a place where there's a lot of resilience, but also a lot of poverty and you know, all these culture clashes. Like, I don't feel like that aspect of life is like captured here in a very like a real way, like a sincere way. I think that also people have a very nostalgic lens on the Caribbean. So when I see Caribbean aesthetics retranslated in other places, it's like this like
tourist place from the 80s. You know what I mean? I like Jorian's work because Jorian's bridging the gap between this idea of the Caribbean that's very old and what Caribbean culture looks like in Toronto right now, which is like queer, underground, rave, like punk, so many different iterations of it. And I'm seeing that kind of pop up now from like different designers, different writers.
Speaking of the future generation.
But it's few and far between. I think that like there's
Sorry. Like, girl, you weren't invited.
not your opinion. She said,
I thought I got rid of you.
Yeah, I'm just so tired of the nostalgic lens because it won't let the Caribbean sort of come into the future.
I mean, there's so much that I want to ask. I wish we were all in the same room. But I'm curious to know. I mean, we have an opportunity, especially in a city like Toronto, where we have the third largest Jamaican diaspora and Caribbean influence. Miss, I know that you're not Jamaican official, but I feel like in Canada, the Caribbean diaspora, we all get lumped in together.
Yeah.
What perspectives, what stories, or who are you meeting that you think people should be seeing and hearing?
I think that like queer Caribbean stories are super important, and like especially in Toronto. And I think that's like a part of being Caribbean that often like I don't know, people just assume that like whatever we're all homophobes or something. Like I just feel like it's a part of being Caribbean that isn't like explored as much as the other parts of it, you know, it's like the food or like the music or whatever. There is a thing about being a queer Caribbean that is like very unique to being a queer Caribbean.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
That's something that came up for me in your work, Jorian, was one, the fact that, you know, there's supposed to be this intergenerational, well, there is this intergenerational dialogue, as the site said, between your father's photography and capturing the community and the place and the era that he was in, and then seeing how it's transitioned into your experience in your community, just seeing the broadening of that, where AO is not Caribbean, you know, and there's a high visibility of the queer community. And I wanted to know, in that, like, what does intergenerational dialogue mean? Like, what's the conversation that you want to see happen between your dad's community and your community?
Good question.
Or if they were all in the same room having a party, what would you want them to talk about, or what would you want your dad to know about your community?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've never really thought about it. I feel like I am making a conscious decision, like photographing for sure, like the Black community, my community, because that's what makes me happiest. And I just want anyone's story to be told like authentically. And also I want to include everybody, queer people especially, because I feel like there's just no conversation if there's no queer like voices or representation. Like I feel like I can't photograph. Sorry, you're freezing. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still hear you.
Are you back? Okay. Sorry, you froze.
We
That's
can
all
hear
right.
you.
Okay.
You're talking about the importance of the queer voice.
Yeah, I feel like I can't photograph Black people, I guess, as a whole and not include queer voices or, you know, queer bodies. So yeah, but going back to, I guess that in conversation with my dad's work, I guess I haven't really thought deeply about that. Yeah, I don't know.
Mm. Well, maybe that work is the actual conversation of just seeing, like, whereas his community, I'm presuming, was largely Caribbean, and
Mm-hmm.
who knows the sexual orientation of everybody, but seeing
Yeah.
that you're visibly or actively, consciously um, trying to make sure that there's queer representation and broadening the representation of the Black experience. Maybe that conversation is just an extension of
Mm-hmm.
your dad's experience. I have a question. Somebody had asked, had a question for Bambi and Mist, specifically Lydia from SOUSOU. Um, I was talking to Jorian, who was saying that you both are people that, as artists that she's photographed, you both know how you want to be portrayed. Like, you have a strong sense of self. And Lydia is a musician and an artist who struggles with knowing how to portray herself, or like what aesthetic to choose, or what, side of her personality to portray. And I'm just wondering, where does that, it's kind of a complex question, but what informs your own self-expression, and like how much of you are we seeing in your photographs?
You want to go first?
Sure. um, the way that I approach it is I kind of like created a character like Mist. I don't think Mist and Jada are the same person necessarily. I think they're like similar, but I don't think that like everything that Jada is, Mist is, or vice versa. And so like in creating this character, you've now created like a story for this character and like a visual for this character. So it's easy to like embody this character instead of like trying to pick a part of yourself to show people, you know? It's creating something outside of yourself to become, rather than like trying to like bare your soul to people. I think that's a lot easier.
Yeah, I actually agree with that, because I feel like that's informed like how I decide I want to look. I also feel like having many experiences where I was misportrayed. Is that the word? Misportrayed? Yeah, have really helped me, because I feel like it's kind of like a practice thing. Like I feel like when I first like started DJing and I would be on all these shoots, whether it's with brands or they're like press photos for me, um, I feel like other people had all these ideas based on who I was, how I should look. And, I guess through having experiences of that not feeling like authentic to me, I came closer to knowing how I wanted to look and what ideas I wanted to come through. Um, and I think that's helped me. So I definitely think it's like a trial and error thing. I've done things where I'm like, that's not me. That's not how I want to look. Either because it was like hyper feminine, or it was corny, or it was like just like not picking up. I especially think that when you're like a Black girl, people will try to put you in certain things. You know what I mean? Like trying to, you know what I'm saying? Because they already have so many preconceived ideas around like what your hair should be. It'd be cool if you tried this. You probably want to try shit. You know what I mean? And I feel like through that, I have a very clear image of what I want to look like, and I've just developed like a stronger sense of agency over like my body and my aesthetic, because I don't think Black women get to have that very often, especially dark skinned women. So it's very important to like develop that as a skill, because I don't get to have that. I don't think people like make us look good very often, and you know what I mean, from actors being on sets where they're like doing their own fucking hair, things like that. You know what I mean? I think it's important as Black women to develop that, because no one's going to do it for us. Like, we've seen that. So yeah, that's I guess my answer. Like,
I actually struggle with kind of the in between, because obviously, being a singer, a vocalist, one of the things that I do, and performing to people, I'm hyper aware of how I'm being received, and I have a strong sense of who I am. But then I am aware of these conversations that we're having about visualizing Black culture, and feeling a sort of responsibility to want to convey something different, or I think as we're having these conversations, the hyper awareness is less around who I am internally, but how I'm going to be perceived. And sometimes I can change how I present myself in resistance to the stereotype, even if what I want to do might happen to fall in the stereotype. Do you ever struggle with that responsibility? Or are you just like, fuck it, I am who I am, I'm just gonna do what I do?
The responsibility of not being a stereotype.
Yeah, or just like how aware of you of being in a black body.
Body that's prone to that because people are
Yeah,
doing. I
it's
mean, I don't like reacting to white people, period. Like, I don't like, I feel like everything that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to disengage from their gaze. Like, I want to act like they don't exist. I want to make like they don't exist. I want to on my body like they don't exist. Like, I feel like the reason, I love dance hall so much is because I feel like, as flawed as it is, and problematic, I love dancehall because I feel like dancehall was an art form that people created for, like, by themselves, for themselves. There was no respectability. There's no like thinking about like an outside gaze or world or other communities. Like, Jamaican people made it and they were talking to each other. There was no like, well, what will like these other people think about this thing? You know what I mean? If you look at like the language and the subject matter, it is literally like people are in a direct dialogue with their neighbors, with the people who live in their hood. You know what I mean? Like, they really disengaged when they made that. It wasn't political, it wasn't anything. And because of that, it is so political and it's so many powerful things. But I just feel like, yeah, I don't want to react like I really don't want to be like reacting. I feel like Black people spend so much time doing that and like having to think, like every script, every design, every this is constantly thinking about like the social equation of their work because of white people. And it's like, that's just so tiring. Like,
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's, I don't know, it's not my responsibility to like be considering like what my societal impact is going to be when I put like a dress on or some shit. Like, I don't know, like I should be able to just like to present myself how I feel like without the pressures of like how 1,000 different cultures are going to perceive me. You know what I mean? Like, I think that Black people like have this kind of like, it's so strange to be like at once put on like this cultural pedestal where everything is made by you at the end of the day, and also be like culturally like punched down on all the time. Like, yeah.
100%.
And so I feel like it's like your job constantly as a Black artist to like be escaping that somehow.
Yeah, it is a very strange thing where I feel like Black people have so much power and influence, but also so disregarded and devalued, and like the narrative is changed. It's very strange, and I feel like the Black body is just so loaded. It's like, so there's no way to present it where it can be neutral. There's like literally no way. So you might as well just do whatever the fuck you want, you know?
Yeah, that was like my final year, like when I was in school, and I was just trying to figure out what I was doing for like my final project, and I was just trying to do what I do. And I think my teacher had made a comment that, what I was doing was political, and I'm like, but why? Like, is it because I'm Black? Like, is it political? So yeah, I found that interesting. I was like,
you know what I mean? Like, I'm tired of all that. I'm tired of like all the think pieces being like using all these like, I'm not, it's not like I don't want to be called queer or Black or blah, 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 but I also feel like Mickey said it the other day, my friend said it the other day, is that in using that language, especially like these like big media platforms, the work is also like ghettoized. Like, queer Black artists are like ghettoized and like put in this niche space that we could like never escape. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I don't feel like people get asked about the actual thing enough. I'm like, ask about the fucking the music, the production, the blah 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 blah. It's too much about like trauma, identity trauma, that I don't should always have to talk about. You know what I mean?
What does
Like,
it mean? But tell me the meaning. I hear the music. I like the music. I feel the music. But tell me the meaning so that I can care about it. Which is
Why don't you tell me the meaning? Like, isn't that the point of art? Like, you're supposed to critique it and analyze it. Like, I shouldn't have to always like be putting my trauma and like my
exactly.
heartbreak on a platter for you to like blah blah blah.
Meanwhile, white guys are like, doop, dabba, doop, doop. And nobody's asking. It's like, what? You know, like, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? They're
So
just like,
do you make the song after you colonized or like before? Like,
exactly.
I want to hear the single that goes beep ba ba deep ba beep beep.
I don't know what that was. I don't know if it was a James Blake. I don't know what it was.
No, but there's also the flip, because there is, and I'm someone who, I mean, I roll in all kinds of circles, which is creates its own kind of identity crisis. But I've just noticed that as someone whose music is assigned the term indie and moving in hyper white spaces, I'm also aware of my aesthetic choices being tagged as white, and it's something that I used to feel self-conscious about, and I don't know if, well, I was going to say maybe I overcompensated in trying to show how black I am, and I don't think that that's the case, but I've noticed that some of the criticism of black expression has come from the black community, and I wanted to know if you ever felt boxed in from black members of your community or
oh
misinterpreted.
yeah, of
Definitely.
course.
Mhm.
Like all the time, like being like a punk and like always being a punk and like, you know, doing that, it's always like, why are you acting white? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it's like, I'm not like, it just seems like, I guess I can understand how it's seen by black people as like deliberate assimilation or something like that. But it's like, this is just like my authentic way that I'm expressing myself, you know? And also like black people have had it, like I said before, like black people have had a hand in every subculture that like exists across the board.
That people don't know that and are creating that binary. Like, this is this and this is that. And I'm like, actually, the black experience is so expansive. I'm like, no, this is actually our shit. You just don't know that because it's rewritten.
Anything about like alternative culture, about like punk culture, like stems back to like, I don't know, like you look at African hairstyles from back in the day and it's like that shit's punk as hell. Like they have liberty spikes, they like indigenous people too, like they have where the Mohawks from, where like the piercings come from, you know, where like the leather comes from. And I think that like we have been so like, I don't know, two-tone even, you know? People don't know that two-tone, what two-tone is or where it comes from, or the fact that like it is black and white and that's what it means. Like it's
What is
so
two-tone?
two-tone is it's ska.
Like, what's that? I was about to ask.
I don't know what two-tone is. I don't
So
know what two-tone is.
when you see like alt people, punk people wearing checkers, it's from ska music. And two-tone was like black and white people coming together to like fight racial oppression, and that's where ska music kind of like came from in the UK, which is the birth of UK punk music as well. So and people don't know that, you know, and I have like the same people who would like tell me I was acting white wearing two-tone and like wearing all this like rock star shit because it's cool now, you know. And so I think that like it's just like it all kind of like melts together eventually. And like if you want to educate people on the spot, then that's cool, but like if you don't, that's also not your burden either.
I think sometimes black people react like that because I think I think we've been socialized by media that's controlled by white people, and then we internalize it and then police each other. You know what I mean? And it can be like as simple as like kids in elementary school making fun of someone for the way they speak and little things like that. Like it's this, I feel like a very subconscious reaction to like trying to protect something that we think is trying to protect where we think our identities end and begin. I think, and it really comes down to like the way media has like socialized people, specifically Black people, because the box of Blackness in media is just so small, it's suffocating. You know what I mean? And people really grow up consuming that and not having a voice around them that's critiquing, like asking or interrogating, well, why do you think you're supposed to like this music or dress like this or speak like this or blah 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 blah, you know? So it really comes down to white people. I should be clear that it comes down to white media. You know what I mean? Like Black people will perpetuate it, but it really comes down to white media and how we internalize that. And it's sad. It's a shame. So
But you know, I had an inkling as to why I wanted both of your voices specifically, and this vacuum is really messing up the vibe. But we're all about the realness here today, so that's fine. But all of this is highlighting why, when I saw um, Out of Many, first of all, as a title for an exhibit, Out of Many, I don't know if you know, Mist is part of Jamaica's slogan, Out of Many, One People. Even Jamaica as a population, people are like, oh, there are Chinese Jamaicans and Syrian Jamaicans and Indo Jamaicans. People just make assumptions about the demographic makeup of Jamaica, which just highlights to me um, just how wild it is that we can have Jamaican patties in the subway. That's how popularized Jamaican culture is in Toronto, and yet we don't know anything about the country. People don't know anything about the country. But hearing all of this and understanding how far or how disconnected Jamaican or sorry, Black influences from Black people in Black society, not just the cultural output, but the Black people that birthed it, highlights to me the importance of your exhibit, Jorian. You know, it makes it cements the connection between the ideas and the feelings, the affect that comes from Black culture with the Black people. And I know that you're someone who's shy and doesn't say a lot, but it just demonstrates it, it portrays it, and it archives it so that we can't forget. So I'm really, really happy that you opened up your family's archives and your personal story to us, because we need those, unfortunately, but in a beautiful way. You know, we need those reminders. Thank you, everybody, for sticking, not sticking. You know what? That was a beautiful offering that they gave us. I think it's I just want to say thank you to Jorian, Bambi, Mist, for being so real. I don't know if they know how to be anything else but real, but for trusting me with their honest opinions. Um, and something I also want to highlight is I mentioned in the comments, you know, thank you, Miss, for bringing us that education. It's not their job to bring us that education. I think that if we're thinking about Black History Month as not just an opportunity to reconsider the Black histories that we take for granted, but to imagine the breadth of possibilities and the nuanced possibilities of Black expression that exist now and can still exist in the future. To make room for those possibilities, we all have to educate ourselves, you know, in whatever capacity you have right now. But if you do have a curiosity, if you do have an inkling to step into your knowledge and be there for Mist and Bambi and me, um, I would love for you to do that. I can't tell you what that education has to look like, but today is just a reminder that it's still necessary. But what was also beautiful about that conversation is just to be in a room full of Black people and laugh and commiserate and to be nervous and kind of self-conscious, like, do I want to say, like, sometimes I don't know if I'm Black enough because I roll with quite a few white people. Yeah, I mean, if I didn't say that, then that insecurity or that ignorance lives within me. But when I put it out there and I'm just like, oh shit, punk music has Black origins, rock music has Black origins. It's not me liking white music, it's just me liking music, you know?
Totally.
What is it that I'm trying to say? This shit is necessary, and it was quite enjoyable to be able to dig deep and laugh about it at the same time. Because it's about celebrating too, you know, so much beauty that exists in the Black experience. And being online, I recognize that not everybody watching or tuning in is necessarily from Canada, but why I think it's important, two things, to highlight the Caribbean experience is when I think about the history of Jamaica, think about it, right? Like ska, rocksteady, reggae, dance hall, all of these genres came out of this island that is like the population of Chicago, you know, and that's how powerful the culture is. Excuse me. If a country that has delivered so many sounds, that has dominated charts and cultures around the world, if those people can't get their due, then what hope does like an island like St. Lucia, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I think
totally.
our relationship to Jamaican culture and Jamaica as a country is indicative of, and the discrepancy between our respect for Jamaican culture and our respect for Jamaican society, I think is indicative or symptomatic of our relationship to Blackness, you know, and Black culture versus Black people. So there's a lot of work to do. And in Canada, because we
Yeah.
are still such a young um, idea of a nation, there's still room to shape new possibilities, you know. And I just want to recognize the power and opportunity in that, and that's something that I have to remind myself of as well. Um, and thinking about Canadian Black history, I was looking it up, and it turns out um, Canada is very, very young and very, very behind. Uh, we only officially observed Black History Month across Canada in 1996, guy. 1996. And that was initiated by Jean Augustine. I believe she's Grenadian, and the first Black woman elected to Parliament. So, yeah, you know, in researching that and diving into these conversations, my initial question was, why are these conversations still necessary? You know, we have memes about this shit. That's how pervasive this conversation is. But the true essence and the actual human everyday impact of these conversations, or the lack of dialogue or engagement with these topics, um, I wanted to ground that in real life experience. And me, as your community member, um, I'm kind of a stand in today for the impact of those conversations. So thank you for being here. And I hope that we continue to follow our curiosities and to educate ourselves and to
Thank
celebrate, you know?
Celebrate, and thank you, Elena, for just facilitating that conversation. I like to think about the word access sometimes, because like this conversation really focused on, oh, I love how Bambi said, the way that we enter and exit Caribbean culture and Black
Mm,
culture so easily compared to so
mm,
many other cultures. And we just leave, we come and go, and we take and we take and we take, and we don't give credit to where credit is due.
mm,
And I just want to focus on you giving us access to this conversation through your relationship with these amazing people and artists,
mm,
because we honor that, and we really protect that, because it's really important for us to hear Black voices, Black femme voices talking about Blackness. Like, it's just not happening enough. It's not happening, and it's not happening honestly enough. And we're not here to protect whiteness anymore. We're here to speak honestly. And I just want to just thank you for facilitating that, because it's really invaluable. And like, I learned a lot from that. Yeah, I learned a lot from just examining every moment, every influence, everything I love about culture in Canada and Black culture, and how that's just kind of just naturally just ingrained itself into my life without recognizing it. And
mm.
now all the time, and I'm not music, art, technology, you know what I mean, production, like it's just so important to look through life with that lens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I gotta say, I don't like having these conversations. It's not as though I'm like, let's talk about Black History Month. I like it. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable, but it's not as though I don't like it, so I shouldn't have it, or I don't like it because it's a bad thing. It's because I still have my own work to do. And if I have work to do, best believe you have work to do, you know? So I'm really glad that we got to talk today. Um, but let's not forget the joy, you know? That's really what it's about. Black culture has brought so much joy to our lives. Um, and Mist is going to demonstrate when we talk about the full breadth of possibilities. Mist in a little bit is going to um, bring some music back to Susu. But before we go, I just want to remind you of a couple of things. We're planning on having Susu's the last Sunday of every month. If you're an artist, you want to perform, and it could be music, it could be dance, it could be a lecture on visual art or showing us live art. Um, we're all about bringing different shit together and taking them risks and seeing what happens. So drop us a line. If you know of an artist that should be on our radar, drop us a line. If you have $1 you want to donate, drop us a line. Drop us a couple lines so that we can support more than one person. And if you need support, check all the links. Luca, who's in the chat, is part of the Susu crew. Big up, Luca. He will let you know where all the links are. We'd like to big up Tom Gill, who makes everything seem super smooth. And it is not always entirely super smooth, but he's running the tech and keeping us looking and feeling and sounding nice. Big up TG, Tom Gill. Big up Lydia Prasad for always being representative of the vulnerability that we always say that we should demonstrate and sit in, but that shit don't always feel good. But Lydia's like, no, but we must. We must. I'm like, you do it. I don't want to do it. We want to.
Anytime. Anytime. Big up to you, Alana, for just bringing just the poise, the grace, the energy, the groundedness that is Susu. I mean, I think that your vision of creating a safe space for artists of color, Black and Indigenous artists, narratives to come through has just been such a beneficial space for myself personally. And I hope to make you feel safe in that space as well.
I like that. Thank you.
I mean, because I benefit all the time off of Black femmes. Those folks are my lifeline, and my inspiration and my watering my seeds. But I just want to give a lot of love back to you for bringing everything that you bring to Susu, and also just to celebrate, a little bit of birthday love to Alana and Luca. Happy birthday to our Pisces folks. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to share a song that I would sing in my Jamaican Pentecostal church during Black History Month. Don't know if you know, but there's a Black national anthem and called Lift Every Voice and Sing. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Thank you. I forgot to put the link in the comments. Sorry.
That was amazing. That was amazing. Yeah, he's got it. He's got it locked. He's got it locked. Wow. Thank you, Alana. Thank you for singing that. Oh, so we uploaded it separately.
I'm so sorry.